I almost can't believe I'm saying this, but we've somehow made it to the season finale of Two Cents Horror Story Season 2. And that might not seem like a big achievement, but when your commitment issues are as all-encompassing as mine, that's really something. And one thing I can commit to is reading this dang old episode summary before we get started for real. A man with indigenous roots has a disturbing encounter with history during a visit to an Old West reenactment for a podcast. Right off the bat, I'm going to give this show some reenactment is not spelled like that. It's one word. Not hyphenated. I know that was probably something Netflix did, but I'm still blaming the CW personally. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this episode was just so insanely stupid that it broke the brain of the person writing the summary. Oh, that couldn't be the case, could it? Spoiler alert, that is in fact the case for sure. Since this is the season finale of season 2, I've decided we're going to do things a little differently. Rather than go through the episode together and then do a little summary of my thoughts at the end, I'm going to do the summary at the beginning and then probably also at the end, and then we'll run through some of my favorite moments. Why am I doing this? Because out of all the episodes of this show we've watched so far, this one is the most confusing and thus for the most interesting. And I'm too excited and impatient and on too many drugs to wait to tell you what's up. So I'm taking the script and I'm freaking flipping it, dude. This episode is well made. Like, shockingly well made. I know it's hard for me to convey with only showing quick clips, but we're gonna try our best to show kind of a little montage of the vibes. I was curious, so I looked up the director of this episode. I was like, dude, who is this? What is this guy doing? And not only has he not directed other stuff, he isn't even a director. I kid you not. He is a low-level stuntman. Of course, the best looking episode of this show was directed by a guy who is not a director at all. They also color graded the episode in a way that reminds me of Twilight, and that is my favorite movie series of all time. That isn't a joke, by the way. For anyone who thinks that's a joke, that's not a joke. I reread and rewatch the entire Twilight series at minimum once a year. And on top of that, I went to the midnight premiere of every single movie. Twilight has genuinely probably done more to shape me into the man I am today than my own parents. But that's enough about Twilight for now. You're probably hearing me heap on the praise, and you're thinking, this must be one of the highest rated episodes, right? Of all time, it's the GOAT. Wrong. This episode sits kind of right in the middle as far as ratings go, like right at that halfway point on IMDb at 6.2 out of 10. Now, that number is very deceptive because no episode of this show should go above a 4. So in normal human ratings, this is like a 3 out of 19 or something. And that's because good camera work, solid editing, and color grading evocative of Twilight means absolutely nothing when everything else is really insanely stupid. Buckle up, kids, because we're going to start looking at the story, the meat of this episode. Like the summary said, our main characters are a podcasting couple covering some kind of historical reenactment set in the West. What a baffling writing choice that is. Aside from actual criminals, amateur niche podcasters might be one of the most deplorable, unlikable types of human that exist. It would take a Herculean effort from the CW writing department to even bring us back to baseline here. And we all know that isn't going to happen because the CW's writing team, oh boy, talk about absolute team they've put together. I think they've all collectively put their brain cells into a timeshare, but somehow they lost the property rights to it. Man, I can't stand, maybe this is just me, I cannot stand this type of opening in media anymore, whether it be movies, shows, whatever. Oh, haha, idiot. You thought it was real, but it turns out we were just faking it. It's a performance. It's a show within the show. Isn't that crazy? No, it's been overdone, and you need to put your stupid film school degree straight into the fire pits of hell if you think this is a good idea to do in today's day and age. You think you've tricked me? You of all people? You think you've outsmarted me? You can't outsmart me in a fair duel of wit, you spineless coward. So you resort to this petty trickery. Immediately I despise all of these characters. More than I even expected to. And that is saying a lot, given that 2 of them are podcaster types. But this guy in particular, Chad. Chad needs to get away from me. Chad needs to shut the fuck up next time he's about to speak. Chad needs to get locked inside a septic tank. Chad needs to have always been dead. I'm gonna need Chad to take 10 steps back from me and then 10 additional steps on top of that. Not only is he insufferable, he is literally the cause of the entire series of tragedies that befall this town of LARPers. So I hear you asking me right now. I hear your brain reaching out to mine through time. What actually happened as a result of his hand getting an ouchie on the gravestone? Well, it causes the vengeful spirits of the townsfolk to start possessing people. Well, okay, some people, and also maybe just the sheriff. I'm not sure here. I'm not sure how many different spirits there are. But this is where things start getting truly confusing and stupid, story-wise. They say that the costumes the reenactors are wearing are made up of original pieces from the actual town earlier in the episode. Well, it turns out anyone who was wearing them is now possessed, except for the people who aren't. Chad and his little piece Claire over here are still completely normal despite being in full costume. In fact, Chad gives a piece of his costume to the podcasting man, Jeremy, and he is instantly possessed. Are Chad and Claire so insanely stupid that even a ghost from the 1800s thinks they're a waste of time? Like, the ghost came through and took a peek inside Chad's brain and saw nothing but a few tumbleweeds and spider webs and was like, oh boy, we gotta move it right along. Don't worry though, little one. This is actually somehow not even close to the peak of stupidity this episode reaches. We have so much more to unpack together. So we've got 4 main characters that currently don't have a ghost inside of them. Chad the Wise, Claire the collateral damage, Jeremy the podcasting man, and Rosalie the podcasting woman. Jeremy and Claire are injured, so they stay behind in the main cabin while the other 2 go to grab their cell phones, call for help. The phones are all like smashed up. Why are they all smashed up? And why are there only 4 phones total when we've seen at least, 30, 40 people here? Yeah, okay. Sure, dude. The big bad sheriff ghost might not want anyone to be able to escape, but they're phones. Why would a ghost from 1891 smash a bunch of phones? To him, it would just seem like little weird pieces of glass. Yet somehow Sheriff Bumblefuck over here knew that he needed to smash them for his grand plan to work. Except, no, he didn't. They are a million miles away from civilization, so calling or texting for help wouldn't do anything in time for it to matter. On top of that, by the time they even got to the cabin that the phones are in, everybody's already dead. Like, the tragedy has already happened. It can't even be prevented at this point. Not only is the street filled with dead people, they had enough time to kill a man and hang him from the church rafters. I cannot imagine hanging a dead guy like that is a quick event. I feel like it has to take at least, 15 minutes minimum. You know what? Let's get even more nitpicky. Why not? It's the season finale, so we might as well go hard. How did this many people fight to the death within 50 feet of all our characters without anyone hearing anything? It is dead silent until they walk outside and actually see all the dead bodies. Typically, when people are getting shanked to death, they screech and howl like banshees, and I don't think these papier-mâché buildings would be 100% soundproof. Also, why is everyone just killing each other? Like, I know this is jumping ahead a little bit, but it's revealed the evil sheriff just wants to kill any Native Americans because he's fucked up like that. The sheriff ghost is just targeting random people. Like, sure, the reenactors are dressed up in like those costumes, but he could just look at them with his eyes and be like, oh, you don't really fit the bill. It kind of seems like everybody just craves like general violence. Haha, prop gun, idiot. So this is like The Purge 1891. But now, we get a cool showdown between Jeremy and the sheriff in the middle of the street while it's raining. Ooh, so cinematic, so dramatic, so traumatic for me. And oh boy, Jeremy sure knows how to fight pretty good here for someone who was just defeated by Chad of all people. Is Jeremy also possessed by the ghost of the sheriff? We hear the sheriff's voice in both of their heads during the fight for some reason. Is the sheriff just possessing everyone but also still doing the murder thing? I forgot to mention this earlier, but nobody can leave. They don't figure out why until the end, but there is an invisible barrier preventing anyone from leaving who has anything from the original town incident on them. So like costumes, items, whatever. So again, I ask, why are Chad and Claire immune to possession? They're completely normal. Well, okay, as normal as they can be at least. But they can't leave the town and are still in costume, so why are they not possessed? Now it's time for one of our most baffling endings yet. And I truly mean that. Like, you are not ready for this shit, homie. Jeremy and his podcasting babe can't leave, so he starts tearing through her bag, trying to find the object that is preventing their departure. Turns out she had a wedding veil stuffed in her purse. For some reason, like she wanted that so bad that she was gonna try and break through a magic wall. But it gets far more stupid. Jeremy yanks the veil out of her bag and also her notebook. For some reason, he decides to stop right then and there to start reading it. In the middle of the street that is currently full of dead people, with many active murderers still running around looking for victims. That's kind of weird, bro. Maybe just respect your girl's privacy for like 2 seconds so you can, not die. Isn't that like the dumbest thing you can even imagine? Isn't that stupid? Well, guess what, idiot? That is still not the peak of stupidity. You thought it was over, not even close. In her notebook, it's revealed that she knew the true history of the town all along, and that members of Jeremy's tribe were among the people killed in the massacre. She was planning on revealing it to him and capturing his emotional breakdown on camera for the podcast. Thank God Jeremy flipped to this page first. Thank God it was the first one Jeremy looked at. Otherwise, they would have had to just sit here and, wait for Jeremy to flip through every page and read it slowly. She then goes full schizo and says she's a real journalist and Jeremy's a bitch and a coward.
I'm a journalist. We dig into the dark parts of history, but you use them. To stop yourself from doing anything from your southern eye. I was just trying to help you get over that and realize your full potential to be an Indian.
Lady, you have a podcast. You are to journalism what a Taco Bell Crunchwrap Supreme is to fine dining. Maybe instead of saying literally any of that, you should just kill yourself next time. And the funniest part about this attempt at an emotional climax is that earlier in the episode, Jeremy made a point to call people out for assuming he was from the same tribe as the people involved in this whole town. He isn't. So her super secret notes and plan were just wrong. Thankfully, Jeremy responds in an entirely reasonable manner and forces the veil onto her head, causing her to be possessed. That'll teach you to have a podcast. Enjoy spending the rest of your life in this town, which of course will be, a week or two at most, because this is a fake town. So you'll either starve to death or die of dehydration as soon as it stops raining. That and the people of the town will probably end up just chopping you up into cubes because it seems like they just want to do that in general to anyone. This final shot is so weird. Jeremy just stands outside of the invisible wall and stares at this crowd of people who are angrily yelling at him. What? They don't seem at all shocked about this magic barrier that they've encountered either. First the ghosts knew what phones were, and now they know about magic? People from the 1800s must have lived insane lives to be able to adapt so quickly. I've always just pictured them as being born and then dying at 35 from old age. Hell yeah. Yeah, Jeremy, walk away triumphantly, my boy. Hopefully that attitude persists when Homeland Security and the FBI come asking questions about your missing girlfriend. Also, hopefully they just believe in ghosts and don't give you the death penalty for being insane and at the scene of 20 murders where you were spreading your DNA all around because you were bleeding, and also your fingerprints are all over the place. Probably your hair, you probably pissed somewhere. So yeah, no, I mean, like, do your thing, girl boss. What a weird episode this was. On a technical level, this was so far beyond anything else this show has ever produced. We got the camera work, we got the editing, and even the sound were light years beyond what episodes have been like before. There are parts of this episode that I was gonna say could genuinely, but like could maybe, if you were drunk, pass for a Twilight scene where Jacob goes on like the weirdest side quest of all time. I mean, not really, because, you know, not really, the acting's not great, doesn't really look like him, but it's close enough to be kind of confusing. But it had just the worst characters, like by far the worst we've ever seen in two-sentence horror stories so far. So bad, in fact, that I genuinely was getting angry while watching this episode. The one time I would have enjoyed a depressing ending where everyone dies, they try to pull some like bullshit inspirational thing about overcoming generational trauma. It was also just so stupid. Like, I know that, you know, probably seems like whatever, like of course I can find plot holes, but all of the things that I called out and like all the things that I noticed were things that I just picked up on while watching it normally. I didn't like rewatch this a bunch of times and analyze everything to find every little problem. These were just things that anyone would notice while watching normally. It is probably the dumbest episode story-wise, which is truly saying something considering we had an episode about a serial killer beauty vlogger who was uploading her vlogs onto the dark web. I have no clue what to rate this episode, so I'm not going to. Instead, we're just gonna jump into a featured comment. DJ over here also remembers the Little Critter books. To be honest, I picked this comment just because I was shocked that anyone but me knew what Little Critter was. Go read, I don't know, 10 Little Critter books instead of watching this show ever. That's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let's roll the outro music. If you enjoyed it, that rocks, and I love you. I'll be back soon with more videos. See ya.